Well, I've got a little strange little thing that I've done in the past, and I don't do it. I take a note card down, which I got one in my desk drawer over here that I've got your name on it, and it says what confidence is. There's a definition of it. So before practice, I come up to you and I say, "Hey, I'm giving you confidence," and it's a note card that says exactly what confidence is.
That's awesome.
And then what's changed, and I haven't had to do it with every team because I've got some kids that are extremely confident in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the end of practice, before we leave, I'll have them go grab that card, and I'll be like, "Okay, confidence is a two-way street. So I gave it to you before practice started. Did you give it back to me to play you tomorrow night?" See, because for a lot of kids, they don't realize confidence is a two-way street. Yeah. Like, you want me to give it to you, but then at practice, you turn it over 8 straight times. You don't make a shot. Well, are you giving it back to me?
Yeah.
But then what I've done with them, and I'll make them ask me, if they say, yes, I gave you confidence today, I'll ask them why.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do? And then they'll tell me, because there are some kids that will say no, and I thought they had a great practice.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's helped me get to understand what do they think a good practice is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Harry, you might say, no, I didn't give you confidence. I'm like, well, actually, I thought you did. I heard you were talking on the sideline the entire practice. You took good shots.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you boxed out. And then all of a sudden, you now have new confidence, new aura about yourself. Like, man, I did have a good day.
Welcome to Limitless Minds, the podcast where curiosity meets greatness. Each week, co-hosts DJ Eitzen and Harry Wilson sit down with some of the most exceptional individuals across sports, business, and beyond. From world-class athletes and peak performance coaches to visionary CEOs, entrepreneurs, and influential authors, they dive deep into the stories and strategies that drive extraordinary success. If you're ready to discover what it takes to be truly limitless and push beyond your own limits, you're in the right place.
Welcome back to the Limitless Minds podcast. We're joined today by Jeff Walz, head coach of the University of Louisville women's basketball team. Coach Walz has built Louisville into a national powerhouse, leading the Cardinals to multiple Final Four appearances and consistently producing elite talent. He's known for his ability to develop young women both on and off the court. And Coach, he has a unique approach to building a winning culture centered around mindset, teamwork, and personal growth. We're excited to dive into his leadership philosophies, his thoughts on the impact of NIL, and the lessons he's learned throughout his coaching career. Enjoy. All right, we're back on another Limitless Minds episode. Today, we have the luxury of having one of my favorite coaches in women's basketball and basketball altogether, and a neighbor of mine, coincidentally, the head coach for the University of Louisville women's basketball, Jeff Walz. Jeff, what's up, man? Thanks for joining us, dude.
I'm doing great. I appreciate the opportunity to be on. Excited for it.
Yeah, we were just chatting kind of before we got on about, kind of our illustrious competitions on the tennis court, in our, inter club championships and otherwise. And, Jeff, you're welcome to tell the audience, how that's gone thus far, especially most recently, if you'd like to. I don't want to put you on the spot, but, I'm just kidding.
Coach, don't let him do this to you.
I like to say we are just one step below, like the Australian Open, the U.S. Open.
That's right.
Right where we fit in. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to dedicate as much to the practice.
We're too busy for this. I mean, it's a hobby, but but excellence recognizes excellence. You know what I mean? And so together, what we might do, Jeff, you and I, we might want to think about this. As down the road, post career. So we got plenty of time. But you and I might want to go pro in pickleball is what I'm thinking. You know what I mean? I think you and I on the pickleball court, it could be over for them for the competition. So we'll leave that there. We'll leave that there for now. But yeah. So, but listen, Jeff, I'd love, a lot of people obviously know who you are as a head coach of University of Louisville women's basketball, but maybe just share a little bit of how you got there, like where you're from, what's the deal with the family, how you got into, head coaching, how you got into coaching women's basketball. Just love to know a little bit of that backstory.
Sure. It's really a long story, but I'll make it short. I played a few years of Division II basketball at Northern Kentucky. And then I like to say I retired. The good Lord did not bless me with very quick feet. And it became a problem after about year 2 when they said you weren't allowed to hand check anymore. So I felt like it was whiplash as everyone was going by me. So when I always say it's never good when you go into your head coach's office and you're like, hey, I think you're wasting my time and I'm wasting your scholarship. And they don't take but a second before they say, yeah, you're right.
You're right.
So
Good call.
as soon as I quit playing, I called home, said I'm not going to do this. And then my mom and dad were like, hey, that's your choice, but how are you paying for college? So I had to go out and find myself a job. And at that point in time, the only job I could find was a 7th grade girls basketball job at Fort Thomas Middle School. And that's how I got into girls basketball coaching. And I did that for 2 summers. And then what a lot of people don't know that are in the game now was I coached my sister for 2 summers in AAU basketball back in those days. And she was actually National High School Player of the Year in 1996.
Oh, wow.
So everybody started offering me jobs because they wanted her.
Right.
So I ended up.
That's really cool.
Yeah. No, it was great. So I'm secondary ed. I plan to be a high school teacher. And in Kentucky, where I grew up here, you have 5 years to start your master's degree and then 5 to get it, or you lose your teaching certificate. So I went down to Western Kentucky as a GA, worked there for 2 years, earned a master's degree, and then the head coach, Paul Sandiford, who's in the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, went from there to Nebraska, asked me if I wanted to go, and you're 24 years old, you're single, and it's like, of course, sounds great. Yeah. So I went out there, worked with him for 4 years, and wanted to be a head coach. And he told me, if this is what you want to do, you have to work for someone else. You can't just have one person on your resume. So went from there to work with Brenda Fries at Minnesota for 1 year, and then we went from there to Maryland, spent 5 years there. And the funny part is I was very fortunate. I've been a lifelong stutterer, and I applied for several jobs after we won the national championship in 2006 at Maryland. It could never get past a phone interview. See, Zoom wasn't around there then. All these platforms, it was just a phone. And I've gotten much better over my time because I just don't care it really anymore. But I could never get past a phone interview. And I was very fortunate that all of a sudden I got a phone call from Louisville that said, we'd be interested in you. Would you want to come here on campus? And, as an athlete, when they tell you, we're really interested, I'm like, we say that to a lot of recruits too, but we don't officially offer a scholarship. I said, are you really interested in me, or is this just a token interview? And they said, no, we are. So I came here, and I'm much better when I get to see faces. It helps me with reaction. Are they looking at me? Are they paying attention? And it's been 18 years now. It's hard to believe, but it's just, awesome. I'm blessed that I'm an hour and a half from my family. And in this profession, you just go wherever the job takes you.
That's so cool. What's your sister? Class of '96. That's me too, Coach. So
really,
what's your sister doing now?
She is now the head of our business department at Fort Thomas Highlands.
Okay.
She's the girls basketball coach up there as well.
Okay.
She has 2 girls. One plays basketball, and then the other's a golfer.
Wow.
And they're both in high school.
That's cool. That's really cool.
That's amazing. That's awesome, man. Well, listen, let's get into a little bit about, because you're well known for, your passion and ability to execute on, developing young women that arrive typically around 18 years old to 22 to maybe over the last few years as old as 24 or 25 these days, right? But so obviously it's been a passion of yours. You've been doing it for a long time. It's taking you to lead, Louisville to and other stops to the NCAA tournament, multiple times, including a couple Final Four and national championship appearances as well. I really want to dig into like your philosophies around this and kind of what led to that and so on and so forth. But let's just kind of start with that big broad word of culture, right? Which everybody uses. I'd love for you to maybe define culture from your perspective and what that is, and then how mindset and like training the mindset and fostering that environment helps build that culture.
Well, I think for me, I learned early on for Paul Sandiford, who I worked with for those 6 years, that you have to be willing to be the first one in. You've got to be willing to mop the gym floor. You've got to be willing to air the basketballs up. It doesn't matter. If you put yourself in a position where you're no better than anybody else, sure, you might be the one that has to have the final decision on what goes on. But I can remember my first day when I got the opportunity to work with him at Western Kentucky. I was a GA at the time. We both walked into the office about the same time, and he was calling the custodians by their first name. And, as we're going up the steps in the old Diddle Arena, I was like, Coach, you know everybody. And he's like, hey, I'm no better than any single person out here. That's the head of our janitorial staff. So I'm the head coach of our team. He's in charge of his team. And I learned a valuable lesson right then and there that if you want to build a culture, you can't sit on your high horse and talk down. You've got to put your boots on the ground, as he used to say.
Wow. That's really how do you coach? Like, for instance, you guys got that big tournament down there, Run for the Roses, right? For the AAU tournament. You talk about culture. So when you're watching these young high school players play, how do you determine whether or not they're a good fit for your culture?
Well, we take a great deal of time of trying to make sure we get to know not just the player, but everyone around them. I've been a big believer throughout my years that, we had a player that we recruited here was very successful that was tardy like 60 something times her junior year to high school. And as I got into her story, I learned, came from a single parent home. Mom worked first shift. Mom left the house at 5 a.m. in the morning. She was responsible to get herself to school. And big personality, great kid. And, it's one of those, she'd show up late and she'd be like, hey, I'm sorry. And everybody would be like, don't worry about it. But they'd still mark her down as tardy, Yeah. And so I learned you have to do everything you can to get to know everyone around them to find out, okay, what's the true story? And then we watch parents a lot. I mean, I say this, and I'm a parent of 4. If the parent's up there screaming at their own kid, you know what? I'm not a big fan of it. That's fine because it's your own kid. But when you start yelling at the other kids, then that's when I kind of put a red flag up. So we look at everything. And I'm a big believer in culture in the point of I was 18 to 22 at one point in time also. We were just fortunate that there weren't cell phones. I mean, so I don't expect every kid to be perfect. We always talk about, do you know the difference between right and wrong?
Right. And
when you do something wrong, are you able to, take a step back and be like, God, that wasn't the smartest thing. And if you're able to do that, then you can be a part of this program, because that's 18 to 24, I think, are the most important years of their lives. And it's a time where they've got to learn to make decisions on their own, which will then impact them for the rest of their lives.
Well, and DJ, yes, great question about like the recruiting aspect and like identifying talent. So then you get the young women on campus. They're suited up in red and black, right? They're wearing the cardinal red, right? And now they're part of the team, they're part of the family, right? And now they got to go perform. They got to make, they got to identify their fit into the system, where they stand. Not everybody's going to be a starter. Not everybody's on scholarship, et cetera. And you have different personalities in the squad, right? And so So now you're in battle. The basketball season is a long season. You got everything before Christmas and exams, and you got everything behind. You get the tournament, et cetera. You guys are going to be in the tournament. You always feel like you have a chance. How do you help them? Kind of what resources or strategies do you deploy as a head coach and also as a staff to kind of foster at a level of mental fitness so they can endure over the course of that season? Because there's going to be bumps in the road. The schedule is going to be tough. You guys always seek to have a tough schedule. Like how do you get them up leveled from a mental fitness component to match the skill that you're coaching and training on?
Yeah, that's great. A great question, because what we take great pride in here, we have one of the largest mental health staffs in the country. So we actually have, I think it's 12 now, full-time mental health staff within our athletic department. So we have a professional that actually comes to our practices and is there because there's a stigma, as we all know, of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go speak to someone about my mental health. If you got a sprained ankle, a bum knee, there's no stigma going to the doctor. If I'm going to the orthopedic. So we've tried to break down that barrier to make them and let them know it's normal. And I will say a lot of the professional athletes now that have come out and said, hey, I've got a mental health coach, a mental performance coach, I think it's huge for our kids, because then it says, wow, that athlete has one as well. For myself, I take a lot of pride and I really work hard on getting to know my players individually as people. We just had individual meetings a week and a half ago, and you don't divulge to each player what's being said, obviously, but I do try to challenge them with, if you would each just start to talk to each other, you might realize you all have the same problems.
Yeah.
But everybody likes to think, oh man, that kid's life's perfect, I'm struggling. And we try to, I try to meet with them and have them come to my office once or twice a week, just so they feel a safe place and a comfortable spot that if they want to talk, they know they're able to. And as I said, I worked for Paul Sandiford for those 6 years, and he taught me early that if the players know you care about them as people, you can coach them as hard as you want, because they know you're trying to get the best out of them on the court, but they also want to know that you care about them as people. Yeah. So we work hard from on that side of it.
Yeah, Coach, as a father, and when you became a father, did that change you as a leader or as a coach? And if so, what ways?
Well, being a father of 3 girls and a son, you get a little more compassion, a little more understanding as you're dealing with your own. And it's also helped me because in this recruiting process, I tell them, I'm like, you're not going to like me every single day, but my own kids don't like me every day. It's called parenting.
Amen.
And and we still, I don't know if all programs do this or not, and it works for us. Like, I still call our players' parents. I reach out to them. They have my cell number. They don't have to call an assistant, in order to get in touch with me, because I want them to know we're an extension of them. Yeah. They've raised their child for 17, 18 years. I want them to feel good that, okay, hey, this staff has the same beliefs as we have. So they're just going to continue to mentor and mold my child. And that's what we do. I've got a daughter who's a freshman at Kennesaw State right now playing volleyball. And, it was one of the things in the recruiting process that I talked to their coach about. He's a great guy. He's a family man. And I was like, I just want to know if I FaceTime and talk to my daughter on Monday and everything's great, and then on Tuesday, the world's coming to an end, which we all know how things can happen.
Right.
I want to be able to pick the phone up and just call them and say, hey, how bad was practice today? And that's it. When it comes to playing time, I'm very fortunate that I don't know a whole bunch about volleyball. So I'm just that parent who sits back and cheers.
Yeah. Sounds like me. Harry. That's exactly it.
I was actually call out something too that I noticed you said, DJ, when you asked about the Run for the Roses tournament. Is that what it's called? Right?
Yes,
that you mentioned?
Yes.
You know, I want to, Jeff, you got to know why DJ's so knowledgeable about this tournament in Louisville, Kentucky, is because he's got some players on his squad, if you will, in his house. And there's one of them in particular that you need to look out for. I probably already mentioned this to you on the tennis court. Yeah, Jada Eitzen, baby. You got a point guard, right? 7th grader. Now is the time, coach. I'm telling you, man, she can ball. So he won't say this.
Too early. It's never too early.
On the radar. She might already be. Like,
I appreciate it.
On the radar. I'll tell you that right now.
We got to get her down there to that camp, coach.
Come on.
Yeah, I'm saying that. That's what I'm saying. But speaking of Jada, DJ, NIL. Let's talk NIL, right?
There you go.
So NIL is changing the landscape, right? We know this. You're a fantastic recruiter because of your authenticity, because of how hard you work at it, how hard your staff works at it. But now you got this relatively new kind of platform that exists. That's kind of, it seems like it's ever changing too. Who knows what it's going to be like over the next handful of years and what it means. But like, how has that NIL era changed? The style of recruiting, changed kind of how you talked about kind of how you kind of evaluate players. Like, how does that change things? And what are you guys doing to kind of solve for that evolution?
Well, we have had direct conversations with all of our players, which I know everyone has, but there are some things now, and it's a wonderful thing for our student athletes because they are able to earn some money now and do different things. Now, it hasn't turned out to what everyone thought it was going to be. Name, image, and likeness, when it first came out, was, when I went back to my hometown in the summer, I wasn't able to put on a basketball camp if I wanted to, because I wasn't allowed to make extra money. And then if you're the top 1% of athletes that could possibly get some endorsements, that's what name, image, and likeness I thought it was supposed to be. Well, now it's, to be put in no better terms, it's coaches going out and getting money for players.
Right.
I mean, that's, I've been here for 18 years. You're out there, you're working your fan base, trying to get them to donate to your collective. And then you figure out a way, how are you going to disperse the amount of money? Yeah. Because not everybody gets paid the same. And we discuss that as well. And I also talk about what you make is what you make. It does not need to be a discussion in the locker room. Because at age 17, age 18 to 22, it's hard for them. It's hard for them to understand.
It's hard for grown folks to understand. So we feel you on that.
And the other hard part about this right now is you're trying to figure out, players are trying to figure out what their worth is. And, on the professional side, and I put football as an example, like if I'm the long snapper, I'm not comparing my salary to the quarterback.
Right.
I might compare it to the other long snappers in the league. And like right now, I just think everyone's trying to figure out, okay, who do I compare myself to? How much should I make? But we are big believers here, and I'll say it because I'm proud of it. Like in our meetings we had this past week, I sat down with all of our players, and every single one of them next week will be sitting down and opening up their Roth IRA.
I love that.
And
that's awesome. That's dope.
They had no idea. Awesome. They had no idea about compounding interest. I sat on my, I do it all. I sit here with them myself, and I'm like, okay, guys, it's pretty simple. You put $2,000 if you got it away, and then $100. And I was basic. I said $100 a month for the rest of your life, which isn't. Yeah. I mean, it's 3 times at a fast food place. And I'm like, here's what it can turn out to when you're 65. And they could not believe it.
That's amazing. That's so cool. That's so cool to have those conversations at that age with them, and the trust you can build with them, having those conversations.
It's really neat. It's fun when you can sit here because some of them, they've been saving their cost of attendance, their Austin money, their Pell Grant, and different. And, I've got some kids that got $18,000 to $20,000 in a savings account at the school bank here, and I'm like,
no interest.
About well, not no interest, 0.03.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true, Coach. You're right.
0.03. Don't forget.
You're right.
Yeah. But it is neat because you're talking about trying to teach individuals, kids, things that they've never really been approached with. And then when I'm like, guys, we can get you a 4-month CD making 5.15, and they're like, well, what's that mean? I'm like, well, over a year, that's $1,200, $1,300. And they're like, just free? I said, yeah, it just comes to you.
Free money.
So we're trying.
That's it.
Yeah, you're trying to prepare them, and some of them, and especially on the men's side, are making some money that if they'll just get the right people to help them, it's the potential of generational wealth.
Yeah. Harry is funny because Harry knows one of my first mentors, Coach, was a gentleman by the name of Mark Soretta. And he gave me my first pharmaceutical job. And that was the first thing he did is he sat me down and said, this is what you need to do in terms of putting money aside for, at that point, it was a 401k. Here's what the match means. Here's what the interest. Here's what you'll have at the end of 20 years, 30 years, and you see that number and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I can not go shopping, 1 month, for clothes, right. And, or whatever it is. Right. And so that's really awesome. You get to make that kind of impression with them at such an early age. Have you seen any, and I think it's really smart to be able to keep those conversations one-to-one in terms of, what folks are making, but have you seen any jealousy or even heard of other coaches and how do they deal with that and, around what, the girls are making?
I think we have not seen it much here yet because you're really a year or two into it on the women's side. Mm-hmm. But I keep my conversations real that, and it's not always whoever scores the most points. We had a young lady this past year who was unbelievable when we had recruits come on campus. I mean, she went out of her way and she won. It's not like she played a whole bunch, but I made sure our collective took care of her because she was helping the program.
Wow.
And it's little things like that I try to make sure they all understand. It's not just a leading scorer. You can do a lot to contribute to a business, a program, and you might not be the top salesman.
I love that. Yeah, that's right.
But it's going to get there. And I do tell them it's not quote, quote, pay for play, but I like to say it is pay for performance.
Yeah.
I can't sit there and say, if you score 20, you'll get an extra $1,000. You score, but at the end of a year, if you're first team all league, well, of course your price is going to go up for the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, I think what kids aren't prepared for and parents is, well, what happens if you score 4 points a game?
Yeah.
Well, now all of a sudden you're going the other way.
Right.
So it's a good thing because kids are getting the opportunity, and I call them kids because they're like my own kids.
That's right.
These young ladies are getting the opportunity to make some money that they've never been able that they've never made before.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, I mean, I think. Yeah, and I think that as we know, whatever the stats are on how many college athletes are going to play professionally, the percentage is very low, and so they're going to go get jobs, careers similar to the ones DJ and I got right after playing sports. Like, hey, we're going to go into sales, we're going to go to pharma, we're going to medical device, we're going to start an insurance company, whatever we're going to do, where it's pay for performance, right? If I perform well, I make a great living. If I don't, they will help me find excellence elsewhere. Right. And so, it also kind of teaches a little bit of kind of reality, post basketball career, that there's another reality out there where that's very similar, right? You bring value to an organization. And again, it might not always be sales numbers. It might not always be, producing, depending on what type of role you're in, but you bring certain value to the organization. You're going to be, that value is going to be distributed back to you. Right. And, so I think that teaches them that, and it's important. The one thing about, I think the one thing too that's interesting about NIL and just the landscape in general is social media, right? And I'd be curious, like, is there any type of education or kind of danger zones that you try to educate your players around on like how to leverage social media, how to use it the right way, how not to use it the right way, et cetera. Like, do you guys have any discussions around that? What do you see? How do you see that landscape of social media impacting the game?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I'll give you a few quick ones that you can look at, even for adults. I'm not sure you put two and two together here, but having the name Jeff Walz right now.
That's right. That makes a ton. Yeah.
That was my first Google search, man. I said, "This is brother."
It's spelled the exact same way. You would. Well, you probably not. You might not be, but the number of emails that I've received. I had a reporter who supposedly works at the White House wanting to do an interview with me concerning what my concerns were with the Harris Walz campaign. And and then I'm getting emails of like, you should be ashamed of yourself. How did you not support your own brother? And they're sending them to jeff@gocards.com. It's not like I've got a jeff.walz at Yahoo. People lose their mind. And
that's amazing.
I try to tell and I've shared it with our players, just trying to get them to understand, like, guys, you can't control crazy.
Right.
And there are going to be people out there on social media that they're not, when you don't have to put your name on something and it's just a screen name, people will write whatever they want. I go, so you've got to be able to navigate. I always tell them, if you play bad, don't look at it. If you play good, look at it if you want. But it's still dangerous because they're telling you how wonderful you are and how great you are. But it has changed everything. A lot for the good.
I was just gonna say, like, I think it's one of these things where a lot of these performers, the athletes, if they live for the cheers, they're going to die, by the booze, and, I'm close to it with my brother, my sister, and some of the folks in our family, that are heavily kind of, on social media. And you're right, man. Like, if you get in the habit of looking at the good news, right. And then you're just in that habit in general, to scroll through stuff, you're going to find things you do not want any business with that mess with your head. They mess with your head, mess with your confidence, mess with, your performance. You start doing things that aren't authentic to yourself. I mean, so I think it's a, a great point you made, it's critical to kind of manage that, what you're consuming, relative to social media.
Hey, Coach, this kind of, when I was doing some research on you, I saw in 2018, you guys went to the Final Four, right? You follow up the next year, you go to the Elite Eight, and then so 2020 now you're rocking and rolling. You're 32-4 going, and then COVID hits. What's going through your mind? Tell me a little bit about that situation and how it all unfolded.
It was crazy. I mean, it was really one of those where, and I will say for us, it was really unique because we played in the finals of the ACC tournament on a Sunday. And it was our spring break. And I had arranged, because you can practice anywhere in the continental United States during the season. So I had arranged for our kids to actually go to Orlando. And we got two huge houses, VRBO, and they had an outdoor basketball court. So they went in the morning and did some layup drills because that was our practice. And then they went to Disney for one day, and then a water park for the next. And then they came back on that Wednesday, and I had been out recruiting. We practiced, come upstairs, and it's like, hey, it's all called off. We're like, what? And it was nuts. And I think it happened so quick that even for our seniors, nobody really knew it was like, it's over. We're finished. But the good thing for us is our kids at least ended it on something they had a great time doing.
Yeah.
But it was really hard because we did have a great team. We had a ball club that had a chance to compete to go back to a Final Four again.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody really knew what to do. And even now, my wife and I look back and I'm like, Yeah, I remember we used to walk down the street, and if our neighbor was walking on the same side, we cross.
Cross the street. I was like, you get a box delivered from Amazon, you're wiping it down with alcohol swab.
Oh, we'd sit in here when we were allowed to get back in the gym. It'd be two players, one at one end, one at the other, and then they were finished. We'd have to take Clorox wipes and wipe the rim down, the backboard down, and the basketballs. It was
dang.
Yeah.
So it was crazy, and then nobody really knew anything about it. But I did always used to laugh a little bit the following year when we started playing that we could have we're 5-on-5, we're just laying on each other, we're banging on each other, and then when I come out of the game, I had to put my mask on.
Yeah, put the mask on the bench. Yeah, you gotta have it.
Yeah.
But when I'm just trying to rebound over you or shove you down,
right.
Okay.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah. I thought that was funny too. Like I go see Anna play in Maples, and then like we go, you wait as a family to wait for the player after the game. They come out and it's all masks. I'm like, y'all been not wearing masks for the last 3 hours. Like, why not? Now I gotta put the mask on. Like, what are we talking about here? But that's funny. I mean, that was a wild time. Yeah,
it was. I always wonder, from a coach's perspective, because even I watched like the high school state tournaments. They were I think they were in their district finals here in Ohio, and so you had some teams that have, gone as far as they've ever gone. And then all of a sudden they just shut it out, and shut it down. And so I always wonder what went through the coach's mind. Like, we could have won the whole thing or Final Four, whatever it was, especially the way you were tracking over the years prior to. I mean, you were, and so, yeah, thanks for giving us some insight on that.
I try not to think about it too much.
I feel you. I feel you.
Hey, Coach, you were mentioning earlier about, the 12 mental health professionals on staff across the Louisville athletic program, correct? And so tell me a little bit more of that. I'm really curious about how, a program like University of Louisville Athletics is handling this. So are these individuals full-time employees? Are they contracted? Are they kind of as needed? Or do they have offices in the building, open door policy? How does that work as far as, how they're integrated into the athletic program and how players can get access to them?
Yes, we are full-time. So they're actually on campus, have offices, not just in the not just in our practice facility, but on campus. Our professional comes to practice 2, 3, 4 times a week, depending on what the day is, because he just wants to make sure. And we have a female, so depending on who you feel more comfortable with, is who you're able to go. And they do a great job of making sure that they're around. Because I am a believer. Like, I just, if you're struggling, even if it's performance related, you're not just going to go talk to somebody you've never seen, or at least open up. And mental health, as we know, is so important right now with everything that's out there, and especially with social media. I mean, it messes with them. So having the access instantly to go talk with someone, it's made things much better here. And then we do about once a week, we have been, where our mental health professional will come in and meet with our team, and they'll do team building little games before practice, activities. So then they get that relationship with them during those activities as well.
Right. Are there actionable, are there techniques, breathing, meditation, any other things that you've seen that you're like, ooh, I love it and it works. B, now I'm seeing my players kind of do this on their own when, that peak performance or mental fitness, mental health coach is not around, that they can take and kind of carry with them, if you will, pre-post game. Are you seeing, what are some of those techniques that you've seen that are leveraged and the most?
During the games, we have a few that have really done a lot of breathing techniques, especially at the free throw line during a timeout, to just get their heart rate down. And it's not all of them, I can say, go and use and take advantage of the resources we have. Some are doing great, but anybody that has any question, they've really opened up and they've actually gone, and tried many different things, and the breathing, the eye contact. It's amazing now. I've got one player that would never during the game. I mean, she'd be looking everywhere, and I'd be like, "Focus here, focus on me." And now she's taught herself, like, "Okay, I'm eye to eye," and she's told me it's made a world of difference for her of going into a timeout, talking about what we're trying to do, and then when the timeout's over, going out there and being able to execute it.
Yeah. How do you instill, or do you instill, confidence in your players?
Well, I've got a little strange little thing that I've done in the past, and I don't do it. I take a note card down, which I got one in my desk drawer over here, that I've got your name on it, and it says what confidence is. There's a definition of it. So before practice, I come up to you and I say, "Hey, I'm giving you confidence." And it's a note card that says exactly what confidence is.
That's awesome.
And then what's changed, and I haven't had to do it with every team, because I've got some kids that are extremely confident in themselves. But then at the end of practice, before we leave, I'll have them go grab that card, and I'll be like, "Okay, confidence is a two-way street. So I gave it to you before practice started. Did you give it back to me to play you tomorrow night?" See, because for a lot of kids, they don't realize confidence is a two-way street. Like, you want me to give it to you, but then at practice, you turn it over 8 straight times. You don't make a shot. Well, are you giving it back to me?
Yeah.
But then what I've done with them, and I'll make them ask me, if they say, "Yes, I gave you confidence today," I'll ask them why. What did you do? And then they'll tell me, because there are some kids that will say no, and I thought they had a great practice.
Right.
Because it's helped me get to understand, what do they think a good practice is. So you might say, "No, I didn't give you confidence." I'm like, "Well, actually, I thought you did. I heard you were talking on the sideline the entire practice. You took good shots. You boxed out, and then all of a sudden, you now have new confidence, new aura about yourself. Like, man, I did have a good day."
That's awesome.
So I try different things.
I like that. They handing an actual note card out, like, that's strong. That's really cool. Really cool.
That's cool. And I can imagine a player, like, especially somebody who knows what they're doing, but after practice, they know they balled out, they played their best, they gave it all, coming back and literally saying, "Hey, coach, here's your card back." You know what I mean? And enjoy, right? You know what I mean? Like, I love that. So, and speaking of that, and kind of those types of players, I mean, you've coached multiple All-Americans, multiple WNBA players, including, Angel McCoughtry, right? Asia Dorr. I remember watching play when Anna was coming up. What are some of the differences? Because there's probably a litany of, but like, what are some of like the difference makers, the separators between those types of transcendent players in women's basketball and folks that, just have a nice career or don't quite reach their or actualize their potential? Like, what do you see as the kind of those qualities, those characteristics, those traits?
Man, it's really a fine line. It's not that big of a difference, but the ones that we've had here, the Dana Evans, as you say, Angel, Asia, Maisha's, the ones that have gone on and they're still playing and they've had great professional careers, they're the ones that I never have to ask it, "Have you been in the gym extra?" Like, they get in the gym, and then the other thing they're really elite at is, it's not the quantity of time that they put in the gym, it's the quality. They'll go in there for 30 minutes, and I mean, the headphones aren't on, and they're going to work. And they get in there, and they got such a good sweat going on, and I'm watching them. I'm like, okay, she knows how to work. And then there's others that can come in there for an hour and get a third accomplished of what some of them get done in 30 minutes. So we're trying to help educate them on how to be efficient. And then what it really means to be able to put good work in. And then, to be honest, as you know, they're just, some have the ability that when the lights come on, they can take what they've done in practice and put it into a game.
Yeah.
And some just they struggle.
Yeah. I see that. I see that. And whether it's in sports or business, sometimes, when the lights come on, the heart rate increases, right? All of a sudden, the hands are a little shaky, the voice is a little shaky. You kind of forget the things that right, that you've been working on, and you have that, that big moment, you kind of, you fall into the shell. And so, I mean, sometimes it's talent and the ability to endure, the lights and endure the presence of a crowd, and some people just have that, that ability to kind of just step up in those moments, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
We say pressure's a privilege, right? Like that's so.
That's it.
That's it. So, Coach, what outside of basketball, what are some of the things you enjoy doing besides beating up on Harry in tennis?
Well, listen, we had one big victory a few years ago. We don't want to.
It was a while back.
But we did. Unfortunately, as I like to say, it was mismanagement by our coach that put me on court 2, and I'm really a court 5 player.
Yeah.
So I took a butt kicking.
I think they were trying to stack. See, DJ, like in club tennis like this, man, like there's a lot of strategies about setting your lineup up, man. I mean, it gets to playoffs, you got some captains that try to stack the courts. In other words, they try to be real strategic about where they're putting guys, and making some assumptions on where other guys will be on based on the competition. And sometimes you overthink it. You know what I mean? Sometimes you overthink it. It is what it is.
It was not pretty. I can tell you that. But no, I enjoy spending time with my family. We're very fortunate. I've got, like I said, my oldest is at Kennesaw State right now playing volleyball. I've had the opportunity to tie in some recruiting down in Atlanta and being able to go see her play. My son is a senior in high school right now, lives in South Carolina with his mom. So he's running cross country and into volleyball, which they have men's volleyball down there. And he's talking about possibly coming up here next year to come to school. Very cool. Excited about that. And then my wife and I have an 11-year-old and 9-year-old, and we are chasing them to volleyball and basketball and cross country. And that's what it's about. We try to get as much of our kids' stuff as I do as I can, because we are gone traveling a lot. And I enjoy it. I love working in my yard. Absolutely. As a coach, you can prepare things for a whole week and play a game, and nothing gets accomplished what you worked on that court for a week. But when I cut my grass, I know what it looks like before I start. I know what it looks like when I'm finished.
I feel you on that. How did that storm y'all got back a while back? Did any trees come down, and how did that affect your yard?
We did not have any come down in our yard. Now I did have we did have a couple die that we'd have cut down, but then I just told them to leave the logs there, and then we cut them up, and I chopped it up. I got firewood for about a year now.
That's awesome.
I love it, man.
That's great.
Well, listen, as we wrap, Coach, I'd love to get a couple parting words from you, because we have a lot of, people that are leading teams that are part of our audience, and oftentimes we're talking about performance from the standpoint of an individual contributor, right? Whether you're the player, whether you're, a salesperson, but leadership is, so critical to how organizations grow and sustain that growth. And, as a leader, what do you see as kind of some of like the biggest common challenges today for leaders, and what would you recommend, them thinking about, or, activating, if you will, to solve for, that big challenge that you see facing leaders today?
Well, I'll start with this. One of the things that I never dreamed that I would be a college basketball coach. You watch stuff on TV, you never realize, like, it's not like you go to school to be a college basketball coach or any type of professional coach. But I will say, one of the things that I've learned throughout my playing days and all that good stuff is when I have individual meetings with my players, I never tell them why they're not playing. Because growing up, hey, Jeff, you're too slow. You can't guard anybody. You're this, and this. And, I'd go down and do the ladder drills. I wasn't getting any faster. So I'll tell you, hey, if you want to play, you're a 3-point shooter. You've got to shoot 50. You got to shoot 46% from three. So now that young lady knows, well, instead of worrying about all this crazy ball handling drills, I'm just going to go down there and get that gun out. And I'm going to knock down 45% of my threes. And he said he has to play me. Or I need you to be our best defender. Stop worrying about scoring. So then when they leave my office, they now are going down to practice knowing exactly what they have to do instead of vice versa of, man, I am slow. I know I'm slow. I can't, so I'm never going to play. I think it's important to give kids hope. Yeah. And realistic hope.
So good.
You know, so that's one of the things that I talk to them about. I talk to our players about all the time. And then times have changed. You know, everybody will say, oh, kids have changed. Kids haven't changed. Parenting has changed, which is okay. You just have to learn to adapt and adjust to it. So it's no longer when we were, I'm 53. When we were growing up, if the coach said just throw the ball to the other team, you didn't ask questions. You just threw it to the other team. Now, you may have thought he was nuts or she was crazy. Well, now I think players want to know why. They want to know more. Why are we doing something? And I don't think it's a bad thing. So I think you've got to be more, you've got to be willing to explain why you're doing things. And as that progresses and as that goes, I also tell our players, hey, when I get a 30-second timeout, I might not have time to tell you why. So you've got to trust me also through the months, years of practice that I'm trying to put us in a position to succeed.
That's great. Success leaves clues, Harry. You see that, right? There's a lot of good nuggets here.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, man. Well, obviously I've admired you both from afar and close as a leader, as a coach, as a basketball mind. I'm just really grateful to have gotten the time with you and to share that time with our audience. And I think I mentioned this over text or email, but we got a chance to also talk to Coach Corey Close.
Yes,
UCLA basketball. Yeah, and she just mentioned kind of the story arc of y'all's relationship and just the respect that she has for you as a competitor, obviously, but also as a peer and a colleague and what you built down here at Louisville. So kudos to you for that, and because Corey's a great friend of ours as well, and so it's really cool to kind of see that connectivity within the space. So yeah, man,
I'm sure she shared that we're playing each other the first game.
You know what? She didn't mention that.
I don't think she said that.
She left that out. That's interesting.
She left that out. Where at?
Paris, France.
Oh wow! No, she definitely.
Bonjour.
First game of the year in Paris, France. Yes,
that's awesome. That's really cool. What a cool experience.
I'm gonna wear a jersey that on one side has red and black. The other side's gonna have that like blue and blue. I don't know what color that is, but and then take a picture. That way you guys know I support you both. Somebody's got to come out with the dub, but it's early in the season. You might see each other back in up in March and April, so that'll be fine. That's good.
That'd be great. Awesome. I appreciate this. Hey, how's your brother's calf? As a diehard Steeler fan, going back to the Steel Curtain, I mean, I've got two older brothers who are 2 and 3 years older than I am that were Cowboys fans. So if you're going to fight in the 70s, I had to be a Steelers fan,
Yeah. Man. He's healing, and it's funny, man. You notice, I don't know if you paid attention, but there's a lot of calf type injuries right now in the NFL. I don't know what that's about. A lot of these soft tissue things going on. He's healing. I think the biggest thing with Russ, the type of mentality he has, you got to protect him from him. You got to protect him from himself. You know what I mean? And I think that's part of what's going on here too, is just like protecting him from himself. He's not used to missing games. He's played for 13 years. I think he's had injuries and bang ups, but like really one injury that's kept him out. And that was, a finger. And so he is not used to winning games. And our dad always, told us about how, taught us like, hey, look, if you're a lead singer, don't give the backup singers the mic. Like this is it's your mic. And so the problem with that now is that you're a little aged up. You got an injury, and so like at this point, You have to be willing to give that mic over, get healthy, and then you'll
That's
get a
right.
chance to be the lead singer when the time's right. So we'll see, man. We'll see. We're hoping that he gets back out there. Either way, we're rooting for the black and yellow, black and gold, and the Yinzers up there.
Gold,
So
come on now.
that's what I was trying to figure out, by the way. Like, and truthfully, and Steelers fans, don't forgive me, I'm new. But like I was asking questions like, hey, is it black and yellow or is it black and gold? Like, what is it? Because I know the song black and yellow.
Rappers say black and yellow, right?
I don't want to be wrong. Like, so I just throw both out there just to not lose. But like, it's like somebody saying Louisville when it's Louisville, right? So I don't want to be wrong. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I appreciate you asking though, man. I'm glad you're a Steelers fan. You know what I mean? We'll have to get you a jersey. We'll have to get you a
so it is black and gold. Is that right?
That's what I was always told.
Okay. There it is. You heard it here. You heard it here.
I'll rock with you. I'll rock with you on that.
There you go.
Well, listen, man, we appreciate you. Thanks for all the tips on leadership and peak performance and some of the strategies that you're doing at U of L women's basketball, what Louisville's doing across the athletic program. And like we always, say to our listeners, we'll see you in the next episode. And remember, you don't have to be sick to get better.